You criticize my audio.
Okay, welcome everybody. So this is a co-stream we do every Wednesday. We've got my buddy Brian White from Futuraza and my other buddy here, Nick Gibbs from Investing Against the Grain. Today we're going to talk about BYD. There's some news that has happened yesterday. They cut their prices 34% across the board, 22 of their 44 plus vehicles in the electric vehicle and hybrids. The government of China held a meeting with not only BYD, but some of the top auto executives out there as well, because apparently there's a real issue with what they call secondhand cars with zero mileage. What does that mean? Yeah, we'll find out. But basically, it's brand new cars that they chalk up as sold, but actually they're sitting there with no mileage. They call it secondhand, and then they try to sell that. So in fact, it's not actually happened. So let's start with that. In the meantime, you've got Tesla about to change the game entirely, not only in electric vehicles, but now heading to autonomous capabilities. So let's is the news yesterday. Chinese EV stocks tumble after BYD slashes prices as much as 34%. Stocks fell 8% yesterday. This is, like for example, the Seagull hatchback was reduced by 20% to $7,780. So you're talking about a car that's already under 10,000. I don't know what happens when you cut prices even more when you're already at the low end of that. They did it with 22 of their vehicles. You can see here, these are the kind of announcements of that's happening. This guy here, he's the CEO of another large Chinese automaker called Great Wall Motor, Wei Jinjun. And he said a couple things, but one of the big things he said was there is, oh, sorry, my screen's not showing up pretty high there, big there. He's saying that there is an Evergrande situation happening in China for the auto industry, meaning some of these massive companies that are out there are going to fail. They're hiding it. We don't know what's actually happening. The other thing he said was when you've already made major cuts over supply, BYD was famously found a letter sent to their suppliers to ask them to do even more price cuts. This was last year. When you've already made cuts to the supplies and parts at this low price point, what else can you do? You're sacrificing quality. Guys, what do you guys think about this? How big of a deal is this?
So I'll go first because I'm sure Nick has more, better thought out thoughts than I do on this. To me, it's a non-issue. We're talking thousands, potentially thousands and thousands of cars out of a country that's selling tens of millions. It is not a huge number. I don't understand the motivation. I don't understand who it was that was buying them, and I would question the validity overall. I mean, was
What
this
are you talking about? Are you talking about the secondhand cars? Or are you talking
yeah,
about?
the
Oh,
secondhand
okay,
cars?
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the whole story, and it doesn't make sense. The story doesn't make sense. Um, there are ways to move them. In terms of the price discounts, getting the Seagull down, I had a chance to see the Dolphin up close. The Dolphin is a very affordable, very stripped down car, but the Seagull is stripped down much, much more. And having seen the Wuling Mini in person, having had a chance to sit in it and feel it, the Wuling Mini is much cheaper than the Seagull, and the Seagull is not that much better. So I can see where the margin is. In terms of hiding their expenses upstream in the supply chain, that's a very different matter and something that will need to be addressed. But as long as their investors are still happy, the company will survive. They can get additional funding as needed from the private markets. There are ways that they can finance it, and their objective is to just grow. Elon had said, "Look, we can trim our margins to zero and still make money in the future on autonomy." BYD is going for the same thing. They're putting all of their autonomous features in all of their cars now to gather the data, to get the training data they need, and that will allow them in the future to be able to monetize today's vehicles. Their goal right now is to capture market share. And Nick and I were talking about this before the show. BYD is too big to fail. This is
Yeah.
China's big company, and if they can surpass Volkswagen in total unit sales, by gum, they're going to do it, even if it hurts like heck.
Well, I'll let Nick have his chance to talk, but I disagree with you in so many ways here. We'll discuss that further.
I'll fight you.
All right. Well, before you girls get into your fight, um, yeah. So I think this is a symptom of a bigger disease that's happening. The bigger disease right now is global. The global economy is slowing down, and it's slowing down intentionally. We are also having heightened risk when it comes to debt. The bond markets are telling us that. In fact, the bond markets are telling us the US should be raising rates, not cutting. Right. So there's lots of cracks in the system right now. And I think what you're seeing here is a symptom of that, where BYD is cutting on the lower end of their lineup. Right. That lower end is more impacted by a slowing economy because those are people who have less funds to spend on vehicles. Now, much like in 2008, we had a housing crisis. China's been dealing with the housing crisis for the better part of 3 years now. That's Evergrande, what Brian alluded to earlier. They didn't take their medicine. They probably should have, but instead they tried to really prop it up, much in the same way that we did with the banks during our housing crisis. Now, part of what happened with our housing crisis is that GM went into bankruptcy and the US bailed them out. The reason that they were too big to fail is because of all the ripple effects that happen, right? If GM goes out of business, not just GM, but it's all the suppliers that supply them, right? It's this huge trickle effect, and it makes them too big to fail. BYD has the exact same problem, all right? The Chinese government's not going to let them go out of business. They're going to make sure that they keep them afloat one way or another. So I do think it's something to not ignore, and it's something that we should be focused on, especially as investors in Tesla. But I don't think it's not existential for BYD because they have a backstop in the CCP. So it's interesting the timing of this when Tesla's about to come out with a new vehicle, when we see how they're doing on their sales, everyone's slowing down. And that's just something that we all have to contend with. The question is, who's going to survive through all of this? What's next? Is this the beginning of the consolidation that we've been thinking was going to happen for the last 5 years? And I think this is one of those other signs of the consolidation coming. So I'm kind of probably in the middle of between both of you. I don't want to speak for Brian. I do think he was kind of alluding to that they do have problems, but it's not a bankruptcy problem, right? I don't think the CCP would make sure that certain other auto companies in China would remain alive, but they absolutely would make sure BYD remains alive because BYD is more than just making vehicles as well. Keep that in mind. They've got other segments that they're in as well. So I'll pause there for you to.
I will add on to that they make batteries for other EV makers. If they fail, what is that? The ripple effect would be very strong, very direct and immediate in terms of impacting other companies. But again, they're so big, they could restructure, they could bring on additional capital. And I don't see this as the end of the world. BYD has cut prices like this before. Tesla's cut prices like this before.
Yeah.
If they have the margin, if they have the efficiency, they can make it work.
Okay, so let's break it down. I think the way you've framed and the words you were using just made it sound a little bit like not a big deal. And that's not the truth, right? So let's break it down. BYD, I
Who's
believe,
you?
is what's that?
You said you. There's two of us. Which one are you talking about?
He means
Brian.
me.
Yeah, Brian.
Okay.
So first of all, I do agree with you guys. BYD is too big to fail. The government will continue to support this. This is something that they're not going to let fall. But they did let Evergrande fall, and it's up at some point. They're not able to save it, and the
They did
reason
not let him fall. Oh, sorry.
but the reason why they won't the reason why it could get out of hand is because we're not just talking about BYD. We are talking about the entire supply chain. So let's break it down. Like I said, okay, I don't believe that the BYD is going to fail. That doesn't mean that they're going to go out of bankruptcy, but this is a big deal. So number one, we have discovered just a couple months ago, BYD was cooking their books. There was an accountant from Singapore that discovered that they had $44 billion of additional debt that they didn't report. We know that they sent letters to all their suppliers begging them to do a 10% price cut. We know that their days of payable outstanding has skyrocketed and ballooned, and they have inventory. They don't pay their suppliers for almost 270 days, close to a year before they pay them. This is signs that there is some major issue. They've raised $6 billion recently, and then you've got these price cuts that are happening. So then you've got these meetings that are happening by the government. You've got these CEOs of large companies in China talking about this. So in China, there was huge incentives. Lots of companies formed, 168 in electric vehicle companies. Apparently, more than 50% of them have less than 1% of market share. Many of them will die. Many of these guys will die. It's a bloodbath. So the price war that's happening, and you continue getting CEOs of supply chain executives, from CEOs of EV makers begging, telling the industry to stop the price war. And you've got BYD continuing the price war. Why? They have no choice. They have to reduce the price because they can't continue their path, right? So this symbol, maybe you're right. Maybe there's only 1,000 of these, what they call, what was it called again? Zero mileage, right? Secondhand cars with zero mileage that has been discovered. The reason why that is happening, and by the way, it's more than 1,000 cars, Brian, because if it was just 1,000 cars, why would the government of China bring together the group to specifically discuss this issue?
Because that's something they do. That's something they do. Battery fires are extremely rare, yet they just mandated all cars be fireproof.
I think it could be a lot bigger than you think. I think it's a systemic issue that the supply chain is happening. They have to not only solve the BYD issue. There's a lot of signals here. There's already a lot of signals that they're not doing very well, in terms of their financials. They will be propped up. They will be invested in incentive. They won't be let to fail, but it's a lot more difficult than people are realizing.
Can I just add just a quick clarification? Just I know you were just speaking quickly, Herbert, but just for the audience, in case there's people who are going to be like, hey, actually, the CCP injected liquidity into the markets and essentially forced other companies to pick up the assets to prevent a huge debacle with the Evergrande situation. So while the CCP did not specifically bail out Evergrande, they did inject liquidity and then essentially force buyers of the assets. So just want to add that color to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm not the one that brought up Evergrande. It was this guy, the CEO of Great Wall China. He's the one that's brought up the word Evergrande, saying that in a recent interview, Evergrande has been in existence in China's auto sector and hasn't blown up yet. Many OEMs are chasing stock valuation and they're losing money making EVs. Which automaker will blow up like Evergrande does? That's what this guy alludes to. And this is the CEO of one of the largest situations. Now, the reason I don't think that China's going to let BYD fall is because they already have several state-owned automakers. So they'll just keep investing in this one and own it eventually, or whatever it is. But I'm not saying they're going to fail. I just think that I'm reacting to how many times do we continue to hear that people are saying Tesla is failing. Don't they realize that BYD is the #1 electric vehicle maker out there? Don't they realize that these huge Chinese automakers are going to conquer the world? All true. Chinese cars. I know you visited them, Brian. You sat in these Chinese cars. You know that they're good cars. Doesn't mean that they have good business models that is ready to conquer the world. They're struggling to get into Europe. They're struggling to get in. They may not make it into the U.S. And in order to go global, in order to be competitive, you have to go global. And in order to have scalability, when you have 44 cars, gas cars, EV cars, hybrid cars, you don't have the scale that people think that they do, that Tesla has, for example. So I'm just saying that they're not as strong as people think that they are. That's instead of saying that they're going to die or anything like that, but you know what I'm saying?
Well, let me share with you something that I learned in China that supports your conclusion. I had an opportunity to spend some time with a high-level auto engineer from a Asian car company that's not Chinese, that is not a Chinese car company. So his perspective was that of a competitor, a near competitor in the Asian market. And I asked him, BYD's got this new factory that's like 2 miles by 2 miles. Why aren't they utilizing vertical space, cubic space, the way Tesla is? Tesla's shown how efficient that is, but they're doing everything on one floor in the old way. Why would they do that? And he said, well, the prevailing theory is that if BYD gets in trouble, if they build it in a way that no one else can use it, it's a stranded asset versus they could just sell it and someone else could move in and take over production or put in their own production with minimal retooling because it's a traditional cookie cutter kind of thing, just bigger. So that would support your theory that that looming trouble is always part of the plan. It is always something they are taking into account. Now, he could be mistaken, but he's reasonably senior and has a pretty good understanding of how these things work, and I believed him. So there could be all kinds of problems, but we can look at problems with automakers around the world. I mean, plenty of skeptics in the comments are saying, yeah, Tesla's in an even worse situation. We can look at Porsche. They're in a much worse situation. And we can see that with a variety of automakers.
Oh, so let's address that for quickly here. So people will go, Tesla is in trouble because now BYD has cut their prices and the competition is going to go crazy. Okay, please understand that we are talking about completely different segments here. BYD's average sales price is $19,000. They sell $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 cars. They do have a couple cars that are in the 40,000, right in the space where Model 3, Model Y is. But we're not talking, their direct competitor. The reason why they're cutting these prices is because they're having bloodbath price wars with other Chinese automakers. That's who they're struggling with, not Tesla. Tesla is doing fine in their segment. In fact,
I think we'll find out more in coming days. We know there was a lot of exports. I assume because the margin is higher in other markets that the Shanghai Gigafactory serves. I don't know if this, at some point, the price war does come to Tesla. If the seal gets low enough.
I was going to say the same thing.
But there is insufficient data yet to reach a conclusion on the impact of that, in my opinion. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying Tesla is in the clear, but I'm saying that when people compare BYD and Tesla, please understand that we're talking about different segments. That's primarily they're in totally different segments of cars, right?
BYD does make cars that compete directly with Tesla. I would argue that they're
a couple
not.
Cars.
Yes, well, I mean that's all they need. I mean, Tesla only makes 2 cars in China, and they do have competitors for those vehicles. And BYD, push them aside for a moment. The Xiaomi SU7 and U7 are aimed squarely at Tesla. Other companies like IM have very
so that brings me to the next thing, right? Which is a strike. Tesla strikes as rivals collapse is what I titled this, because yes, that's all true what you just said. The other thing you said was well, BYD is introducing FSD like capabilities to their cars. That is not true, Brian. So that if you look at what actually happened there, BYD announced God's Eye A, B, and C, and they're saying that they're going to apply that to all of their cars. Mm-hmm. God's Eye A is the one for the top tier cars, which is equivalent to full self-driving. There's only 8,000 cars that they're going to put that in.
Right. But
B
the
and C
data gathering
ADAS, sure.
Yeah,
so they are just the beginning, the data gathering, because they're going to finally put cameras into all their cars. They're just at the very beginning of that. This won't even launch until next year. You need to start with creating cars that can gather the data gather. But anyways, B and C are ADAS. They're not near full self-driving. So just again, people need to be aware that they're going, oh my God, what's Tesla going to do when BYD has FSD in all their cars? Well, Tesla already has FSD in all their cars, and BYD is just starting. Why did they start? Why did they make this announcement when they're already not making as much profit as they need to? Because they felt the pressure that they need. They realize now it's table stakes. You have to have ADAS in all your cars, even the price, $10,000 ones, and that's what they're trying to do, to catch up.
Yum, table stakes.
I know this is like just a topic to discuss for the stream, but I think people who are invested in Tesla should just focus on Tesla. Ignore the other companies. I think
Yeah.
this is all noise.
Yeah. And we're
That's
about
what we
to
do, make noise.
implement.
Fair enough. But I don't.
No, I agree, but there
We
are
have
other
enough things to worry about for next week.
Let's talk about that. I just want to address this BYD. It's the biggest topic that's happened just yesterday. Also, Nissan is selling their headquarters. They're at death's door. You've got, their proposed merger with Honda failed, and and so now both of them are. That's a good question, whether or not Japan will consider Nissan and Honda too big to fail. I don't think they are. I think they're going to have to go. Toyota is the only one that's too big to fail for Japan. We'll see.
Toyota definitely. Boy, Honda and Nissan, that's a real tough call. I'd say you'd realistically, financially, you'd probably have to pick one, and it wouldn't be Nissan. I love the post I saw on X. Nissan is selling their headquarters, which is worth 700 million. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. That may have been what you paid for it, but it ain't worth that. Maybe that's what your tax assessed value is, but show me a buyer who wants that building for that price. And nope. Nope. And what's your plan? You're going to sell your headquarters? Now what are you going to do? Everybody work from home? No, you're going to rent it back from whoever you sell it to and try and stay afloat a little longer. Prolong the inevitable. This is that part of the game Monopoly when you are just circling the board for hours knowing who's going to win.
I think GM just announced today that they're pulling $400 million that was earmarked for electric vehicles and putting that into gas cars.
Well, yeah, they're not making good margins on their EVs. Their EV plants that they just built can't really import into the US anymore, and they make good money on gas vehicles. This is, I mean, we were told this was going to happen, and it did. So it's unfortunate, but
yeah. So let's talk Tesla. Yeah, tell me, Nick, what are you thinking?
What I'm thinking is, well, I'm not thinking anything. I'm more wondering on how this is all going to pan out starting Sunday. Sunday's June 1st. I'm wondering, does it actually launch on June 1st? It kind of feels like they've been indicating it would be June 1st. And what does that look like? If it's not June 1st, curious to see how the markets react to that. If it is June 1st and they have some kind of ceremony or announcement or whatever, or some videos drop, that could be really exciting. Monday could be a crazy day in the market. I don't know. I'm just wondering how it's going to happen, how we're actually going to hear about it. I'm surprised we haven't heard much about it up to this point. So I don't know. I'm just more so. I just got questions. Is where I'm at. And
I'm with Nick on this. Where may I see the more affordable model? May I know what it is? We've got basically a month countdown to the end of the first half. That's the timeline. So yeah, I think a lot of the questions we're discussing, automotive questions, will be the wrong questions, because if autonomy is solved, when autonomy is solved, these other questions become less relevant. Well, I made a machine that can shoe horses even faster. It doesn't matter.
It's less relevant for Tesla, but it's very relevant for the other automakers, because that's my point. It's like it would accelerate their death.
80% of, I would argue, at least 80% of today's buyers don't care about autonomy because they haven't had an experience with it that would lead them to believe it's as good as it is. Those 80% look at BYD, they look at Hyundai, they look at any other car and go, well, maybe it doesn't charge as conveniently as a Tesla, but in every other way, it's just as good. Well, I guess, but yes, if you strip out all the things that make the car special, then it is just a car.
what do you think, Herbert? How do you think like, is anything going to happen on the first? Are we going to hear anything? Like,
Yeah,
what's
I'm
your
not.
secret intel saying?
I'd have zero intel.
Don't you guys know he's an insider? He gets paid.
I'm not. I got zero payment from any Tesla. Nothing. Zero. This is. I know there's rumors out there that people are spreading out there.
All
I'm
of
not
us,
aware
all of
of
us
any influencers that are paid by Tesla. This is a public company.
That's
They
a
have
joke.
to
Don't
disclose
focus on that
kind of this.
part.
Well,
Okay.
but
So-
actually, I do want to focus on it real quick because we get these accusations all the time, and they don't
Yeah.
make sense. If anybody in the Tesla space was getting paid by Tesla, word would get around. We would hear about it. And then, of course, I make one video that's favorable to some Chinese company, and people are like, "Oh, you're on the take. The Chinese government is cutting checks to Brian," and it's like, I struggled to get into the auto show. That's not the sign of someone who's got any kind of cooperation. So it's just frustrating. And then we turn around, and when I say we, I mean not me, probably not you guys. I see it on X. People say, "Oh, if you're negative on Tesla, you're getting paid to do that." And I say, guys, you gotta stop it. It's ridiculously stupid when they say it and when we say it.
Also, Sunday. It's too close now. It's Wednesday. I just feel like we should have heard something that that this is happening. Now, I did not like. We've been asking the question: would they actually hold an event for the first days? They may not. It's only 10 cars, right? But they'll have to announce it. I am now very skeptical it's going to happen on Sunday.
I don't think they have to announce it. If people start spotting cybercabs outside the Austin, oh, they're starting with Model Ys. Never mind.
Oh, and it's
Yeah,
also
no,
going to be
you're right.
invite only. It's only going to be
Right.
invite only.
I was
too,
going to
I
say,
think.
if you spot cybercabs outside the Austin campus, then we would have the proof we need, but it won't be cybercab. So
Yeah.
that
So
doesn't
my
work.
suspicion now is that it's going to be invite only in a very small geofenced area, and then expanded from there. It just doesn't sound like it's going to be happening on Sunday anymore.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Even if it did,
could.
by the way, I don't think the stock was going to skyrocket or anything like that.
Not
No.
on 10 cars, not on Model Ys.
Yeah.
The influencer factor won't be there. If these
Yeah.
rides could be made available to the actual public, you would see all the biggest influencers, certainly in the country, but probably in the world, flocking to Austin to get the gram.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, it's already been said that it's only going to be for a limited amount of people. It's going to be invite only first. I mean, we know a lot already. We just don't know when it's going to happen. I would speculate that it's going to be employees only, and then employees and families and friends, kind of like a soft launch of a restaurant. And then as they get data on that and with people that they trust, I think it'll open up wider and wider. But I do think that we'll eventually see some type of Tesla commercial kind of thing where where they've already filmed something ahead of time with maybe one vehicle that's already out there. And I don't know, I kind of feel like June 1st is a date that they've had in mind. So I don't, and you know what? The Tesla account has not let up on posting about how amazing FSD is.
That's all true. And Elon has been saying it too, right? Just a few days ago, or on the weekend, today's Wednesday, Elon posted saying that I'm now back working 24/7, sleeping on the factory floor, the server floors, and the conference rooms. Then he said, I'm focused on there's critical technologies that I need to focus on. And then he said, and FSD unsupervised. So I don't know if you take that as, yeah, he needs to be there, or maybe there is something there that he's trying to, like a problem, a fire he's trying to resolve before, so they can launch properly. I doubt it, but you could read it that way.
No, I think it's just the launch. Just like that every Starship launch, every test.
So since we're going to be discussing Tesla, should we mention the thing that's blowing up the chat about one of the
let me leave before you do that, because I gotta drop. You guys have fun with Mr. Black. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you, and
thank you, Nick. Good to see you.
Carry on strong, everybody. Cheers.
So the big news today, you got to recognize it. One of the biggest investors in Tesla. Look, Gary Black had very few shares. Now he has none. He has sold out
Sorry,
because the
what was the
price.
news? Is that new?
Gary Black. Yes, I put it in the private chat. Gary Black announced this morning, apparently on Patreon, word got out. He confirmed it publicly that he has sold out of his position on Tesla.
Yeah.
All share. I don't know how many he had. It wasn't many, but
Yeah, it was very small.
but now if you look at the big names in news who are talking about Tesla, if you go to Google News and search all the sources, you will find countless quotes from Gary Black in interviews with Ross Gerber. And between the two of them, in their funds, they now hold about 100 shares.
Yeah.
So they do not deserve the time
They
of day.
they don't deserve it. They don't even represent Tesla at all. You know, it's not surprising that Gary Black would sell everything. He has always been an auto guy. Like, he's very traditional, very old school. He looks at products and he looks at whether or not that product is going to sell, and he looks at it based on just that. And he's looking at the cars, and he really was getting into Tesla because of the cars. Just the moment we're about to launch Robotaxi, that's when he sells out. So it's not like there's zero, and you know, he's not a guy who's looking at what could happen in the future, gives it zero credence, right? He's driven with full self-driving. He doesn't, he's, and then I asked him one time, why did you say that you think that within 3 months of Tesla launching Robotaxi, many other car companies will come out and copy it and be able to copy it within 3 months? And he said, well, he said, because it's software. And that's what happened with software ever. And I said, that's your reason? I was shocked. Like, so it's just because of this generic thing in your head that any software can be copied in 3 months. There's a lot of truth in that, but you know, I guess we have a different understanding of what full self-driving is. I don't think it's software. I think if it's a neural net that was trained through supercomputers and billions of data to teach it how to do something, it's not something you can just copy and transfer over to another server and then run it for another company. Step one. Step two is, sure, you'll have a handful of cars competing. They already do. They're ahead of Tesla. There's probably 9 different vendors that have got approved for autonomous car testing. You got Zoox, you got Cruise, you got Waymo, you got this autonomous car, Aurora. They're out there, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, like, can you make 10,000 cars? Can you make 100,000 cars?
If that was true, wouldn't everybody have copied those companies that are already doing it? And I'm with you on this. Copying some software is not impossible, but this is really a hardware application. It's not just getting, if you had perfect software, great. Now you need to have all the vehicles in which to put it and the time to test it. I would agree with you that Gary missed the boat on that. And this is crazy. We saw years ago, one of the co-CEOs of Waymo step down. And when I saw that, I said, oh, well, they're years from actually deploying. No. They're still on track. It's going to be 3 months from now. You know, the CEO don't leave 3 months before they change the world. That's not how it works.
Amy had a fantastic post asking, like, if you want to compare Waymo to Tesla or just Waymo in general, their success, why aren't you asking the right questions? And one of the top questions would be, Waymo, you've been around for 16 years. Why do you only have 1,500 cars and only going to expand to 2,000 cars next year? If you are so successful, if things have been solved, as Gary has said, you know, Waymo's already successful and they're far ahead of Tesla in terms of miles between disengagements, and Waymo can easily copy Tesla. If that was the case, why do they only have 1,500 cars all these years?
It's a very good question. And let's talk about missed timelines, because this one drives me crazy. Tesla always misses timelines. No, they don't. Model 3 came out on schedule. Model Y came out on schedule. The factory in Shanghai came out ahead of schedule. And actually, the Model Y came out ahead of schedule. And the expansion in Shanghai, the Megapack factories, all of them were on or ahead of schedule. And this is yes, but on autonomy. Everybody missed on autonomy. Everybody did. And for that matter, if you look at all the other manufacturers, going back to about 2015, manufacturers had this habit of saying, in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have 20 to 30 cars, all of them better, cheaper, faster than Tesla. Why are we not outraged about that? If you're angry that FSD timelines are missed, but you're not pointing to any of those other missed timelines by other manufacturers, I have to think your focus isn't integrity, but bashing Tesla.
Yeah. I don't know. So that's okay. It's not a big deal if these guys are leaving Tesla stock. That's perfectly fine. You can make your decision. We have different opinions. It's just odd that you're going to make it, sticking through the thick and thin for the last 4 years when it was a car company. Now that it's about not to become a car company, that's when you leave. It's like
so wild.
It's weird.
So wild.
Just weird.
And yeah, I've seen the people Gary follows. I don't believe he is necessarily following the best and brightest. Some of them definitely are, but I can tell you from some of the people I see him interacting with on a regular basis, he is definitely drinking poison from that, and it's not necessarily helping. But past results don't always indicate future prospects. So maybe his fund will be profitable in the future.
Sure.
Maybe it'll have.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Okay, well, we lost. That's fine. It's good. It's good, actually. I prefer these guys to not hold any Tesla shares.
Mhm.
And like you say, that they are just so, their thinking is just, it's odd, very odd. I do not understand when they say that Uber will be the only winner, because in fact, everybody will have autonomous cars. It's about timing though, right? So what would happen so let's say it is true that technology can be copied and everybody will have autonomous cars, but when? Like 3 months? A year?
Okay.
2 years?
A product development cycle is 3 to 5, but let's play a fun game. Tesla solves it whenever. January 1st, everybody can have it. Every car has it. It works. And on January 1st, Waymo also has it solved. They're ready to roll out. They can put it in cars. Which car is going to be more cost effective to own and operate?
Well, how many? The first question is how many?
Oh, yes. So Tesla can satisfy the entire rideshare needs of an entire city each week.
Just 1 week, and they'll produce what, 10,000 cars? What number are you coming up with?
Well, I mean, that's about right. I mean, that's a 500,000 run rate for the US. That seems reasonable. If anything, maybe a little low, but yeah, 5,000 for a small to medium sized city.
They can spit out 5,000 cars per week. Now, what can
before unboxed, before the more affordable model? Yes.
So Waymo today is promised that they have 1,500 cars today. They're going to put 2,000 Jaguar I-Paces, which has been discontinued. Mm-hmm. And they've got plans for the Zeekr, which is a Chinese company that they have to import from China and pay some sort of 100% plus tariffs on that. Let's say they do that. But how many? Because they've not announced. They have to announce it now, don't they? That they're going to buy. By the way, they have to buy the cars. Waymo has to buy the car. So does Waymo have the money to buy the cars from the manufacturer who built it? Then they have to outfit it. They have to be the ones, right? They take it to Tempe, or is it Arizona?
Yep. Yeah, it's Magna does the upfit.
The upfit for it. And then after that's done, then they roll it out. You had a great line, didn't you? What was your line? That the time it takes for Waymo
the cost to ship the car to Magna to upfit it costs more than the margin on Tesla's vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh, and it takes longer than it does. Yeah, that's what it was. It takes longer to ship the car to be upfitted than it takes Tesla to manufacture the vehicle
to make a whole
in its
car.
entirety.
Exactly.
So that's, I mean, the even if everyone had it solved, do you want the $80,000 to $100,000 one, or do you want the $25,000 one?
Yeah. Oh. So let's say a year from now, 10 automakers can actually, or vendors can actually make autonomous cars. But how many? That's the question. I just don't understand how they're thinking that it's going to be flooded equally. Tesla will have an equal portion as everyone else. And by the way, they also say that it's going to be price competitive. Okay.
Okay.
How? I don't get
What's
how
your
that these other
definition of
car.
price competitive? Because
I
I
mean,
don't think you're understanding
they'll
what the price is.
subsidize it to be price competitive. There's a price war. That's what Uber did with Lyft. They both got as much VC money as possible, and they lowered the price below the $2-3 price. But they
Mhm.
couldn't. You can't do that for more than a year, 2 years, and then
Right.
you run out of money.
And you can't do it at scale. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah. So even if the tech is out there, I just don't understand. I honestly don't. Um, trying
Pretty
to
wild.
understand.
It's pretty
Yeah.
wild. Have you seen the numbers for Porsche?
I've
Porsche
heard the Porsche CEO, didn't he just come out recently and said that their Chinese presence has basically disappeared? They have zero
collapsed
presence
is
in
the
China
word
now.
Oliver
Collapsed.
Bloom used to describe Porsche's presence in China. But have
Mm.
you seen their numbers in Germany?
No, what happened?
Very, very grim. Oh, super
Mm.
grim. I might have it somewhere here. I don't. I don't have it up. Nope.
So this was what I was trying to say about, the rivals are collapsing. So you got these Chinese automakers that everybody agrees are formidable, and you tested them out. They're great cars. They're getting better. There's many of them, and they're trying to go global. So you've tracked how many factories they have in South America, around the country, Indonesia. They got these factories already there. They're trying to break into the US, but there's politics right now that's going to prevent the Chinese to get into to the US. I interviewed Michael Dunn and Nicholas Colas. Both of these are auto industry
Mhm.
experts who both said that the problem is that in order to be a very competitive automaker, one of the top global manufacturers, you have to be global. You have to be global. Japan got global. Korea got global. That's why these car companies became top car companies. If China can't get into the US, they need to get into the US. It's not enough just to get into these other countries. That's not enough to go global. So if they are prevented going to the US, they can't go global. Now you've got the American car companies who are losing, and the Europeans who are no longer having a presence in China that they used to. They used to have a presence in China. Now they don't. So they are not global anymore. And then
Right.
they're struggling to go to EVs, and EVs is now the new space. Now, they're kind of hiding it right now because they're switching to hybrids for now. And right now in the U.S. The U.S. is not demanding EVs quite yet. They're at what 8%, 10% of sales in the U.S. is electric vehicles, but the rest of the world it's already skyrocketed up. So even the U.S. and European car makers are not global anymore because they lost all their share in China. So the only truly global car company right now is Tesla. The only one.
Look at Toyota. Their sales in China are not good. Foreign brands in China are really struggling. I asked everyone I met on the street, I'm in the auto analysis game. What car brands do you like? I had literally only one person lead with Mercedes, BMW, Audi.
Mm.
One the entire trip. And I wouldn't push them into a particular direction. I would just listen to what they had to say. But only one. Those used to be the prestige brands, and they simply are not. Um, Volkswagen is still doing pretty well internationally, but getting back to BYD, it is very likely that BYD surpasses Volkswagen in the next couple of years in terms of total volume sales, total unit sales, especially as their new cajillion square foot factory comes online in China, which is eye-wateringly huge.
When you were in China and you were just there last month, right? What did you see about full self-driving?
Mhm.
The feeling about autonomous
China's
driving.
China's a very tech-forward country. They don't have I didn't meet anyone who had a mental roadblock standing between them and autonomy. If it works, great, done. I'm happy with it. So then the question is, who has it? I did not have an opportunity to go to Shenzhen, China, where all the autonomous testing takes place. I would love to do that in the future. The cost is, very high, and I'm just not going back to China without ground support. It's too much work and stress. So maybe that'll happen. But in Shenzhen, there are a lot of companies testing their completely driverless vehicles. Now, they are heavily monitored. I was told that the law in China says no greater ratio than 3 vehicles per supervisor,
Oh,
which is
where did you get that number from? That's the first time I heard this.
an the legacy engineer guy that I was there with.
Do you trust
That
that?
I hung out.
That's the real number? That's a real stat? Like
I
there's a rule? 3 to
that's
1?
that's what he told me.
Okay.
So getting news out of China from beyond the Great Firewall is challenging. And even when you're there getting information, it's so difficult. All the sites I use every day require a VPN, and then you can't access the local sites with the VPN still turned on. It's a catastrophe. I hate it. Anyway, people are fine with it. And the automakers are coming in quick with their versions. They are releasing, some of them are releasing versions of ADAS that make early Tesla autopilot look safe and sane.
Yeah.
So they are
At
really
least they're
in the
trying.
move fast
They're
and
getting
break
in.
things mood.
Yeah.
And I think with Neo, I had asked the driver, who's in charge of your autonomous division? Because they go, we got a new version coming. I go, is it in this car? No, no, no. We won't see it until June. I go, okay. I go, is that one going to be like the solved one? Who's in charge of the division? Oh, the department head just left, but everyone else is locked in the engineering center until it's solved. I was like, oh no, that's not good at all. That's the opposite of what I wanted to hear. But hey, so they are all hands on deck, and they've got brilliant engineers. So if if there is one solution that works over others, we'll know in the next few years. And if there are, you know, and if it's impossible, oh my gosh, it's not impossible. So yeah, autonomy is happening in China, and the two leaders in terms of data collection would be BYD. They are gathering data like crazy, and Huawei. All of their vehicles also have all the sensor suites and I would argue that Huawei has a greater capacity to understand what to do with the data once gathered.
Huawei and then Xiaomi, of course, we think that they've got good cars, YU7 and XU7. But
Mm-hmm.
again, these numbers are small, though. That's it's great.
Xiaomi's numbers are small. Xiaomi's numbers are small for now, but they are gathering more data than anyone else in the US apart from Tesla. Everyone else, you and I have had this discussion. If Ford wanted to gather the data, they could. All they'd have to do is spend an extra $2,000 per car putting all the sensors and computer on it, and they'll never do that because
there are there are 4 Chinese car companies that have stopped and said, we're going to stop using LiDAR. We're going to start moving to neural nets. We're going to start using our vision cameras. They're copying Tesla. They did that last year. So they're following along Tesla's path, but they just started. That's the point. At least they're doing it, but they are started.
Doing it.
Versus, we've not heard anyone else say that they're doing this.
And
so
I would point out that Huawei's already licensing to other manufacturers. Avatar uses Huawei, and there are other brands that do as well. I don't remember if Xiaomi's using Huawei's system, but there are a number of companies that are already Huawei inside. And that's affords them more scale. It affords them faster training. It certainly puts the fire under them because now you've got not just your own customers to deal with, but outside companies as well.
Well, let's talk about that. Does scale matter in autonomy? Because that's the other argument. They said, well, every car company will be able to compete with Tesla. They're just one of, everyone else. Yeah. But what happens if Tesla is the one that does partner with these car companies, which is very likely to happen? So now let's say, just throw out a name. Let's say Ford and Tesla licensed Ford. So now Ford, by the time any other car company comes in and they offer it and they've got small numbers, but then Tesla has not only all their 7 million cars, now you've got all, as many of the Ford actually added, then you add another, then you add another. It's like they're going to be, let's say 3 times larger, 10 times larger than as anybody else. Does that matter?
Does training data matter? Absolutely. 100%. You can't find the exceptions unless you put in the time, log the miles. If we see this solved next month, And I've seen people asking, well, but I'm on version 13. It's very advanced, but it's nowhere close. I say, right, it's probably going to be version 14. I'm assuming we're going to see a whole new version roll out with the rollout of the Robotaxi.
Mm-hmm.
If that version is the solved version, I don't see a reason for my company, no matter how big or small, to do anything other than license. And yeah, that would create quite a cascade. Mind you, it's going to take 3 years at a minimum to get it into those vehicles, and it'll only get better in that time. But yeah,
I wanted you to answer. Well, that's all good answers, but I think the when it comes to Robotaxi, scale matters. That's what Uber did.
100%.
Uber tried to conquer a market, and they went and tried to lower the price cuts, everything they can to conquer a market to get as many of the drivers. The drivers ended up not caring, right? Every driver I know has 2 apps on their phone, Lyft and Uber, and they're registered to both. So yes, I think the Uber might still have more drivers, but what matters more is, the brand and what the people choose which one, right? So I do think that scale matters, and I think that you'll be able to do a lot lower pricing, and pricing is what matters to win the space, or to win a majority of it, right? Take most space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and again, if Tesla could capture 20 to 50% of today's rideshare market, that would be monumental.
It's enough.
And they can. But if they keep reducing the price because their costs are lower, what you're going to see is they'll continue eroding the market share of others, of taxis, of Uber, of Lyft, but then they'll begin expanding the market beyond those. Because you and I have had this discussion many times. We simply cannot take Uber to the airport. That drive is not that far, but the price is astronomical.
Yeah.
It is cheaper for me to drive myself, park the car, leave it there, and then, pay for the parking. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of the parking lots. Will from Tesla Jigsaw asked, should we make parking spots bigger or demand that cars get smaller? And I said, forget it. Let's just send the cars off to do their own thing and turn it into a picnic area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here we are. We're talking days away from Tesla doing this. People still just doubting it. And I'm just what I wanted to cover today is it just seems like it's such a dichotomy. The same time that we keep reporting, here's what Tesla's doing now. Here's what they just, I think you and I did a show this morning that they've expanded their self-parking cars in Giga Berlin this morning, right? So now all cars coming out of Giga Berlin are parking themselves. They're about to launch Robotaxi. In the meantime, we continue to get one after another bad news, and now we're getting it for the Chinese car companies as well. So it takes time, but there's these signals that show you that things are not good and they're about to get worse. And at some point, it's like a house of cards. You'll start seeing 1, 2, 3. It's going to happen. If not this year, it'll happen in 2 to 5 years. I mean, it's just bound to happen at this point, right? If you're making gas cars, there's no more debate whether gas cars peaked in 2017. And since then, it's fallen. And so there's no more this belief that gas cars are going to be here to stay for a long period of time. As electric vehicles take off, gas cars fall. So
So, guys, worth noting that we have 4 minutes left in the show. This is the time where I generally take a break, and I'm still going to do it because I go live with an after show, which follows directly from my channel. It should follow directly from Herbert's channel. And the beauty is, for the next 3 minutes, you get to watch Herbert vamp by himself.
I'm gonna close it up as well. So just
you gotta give me my break time, though. I mean, it's I don't have a contract, but you can recap nicely on your own. And guys, on the after show, I will see you there as soon as this one winds down. Thank you so much, Herbert, and I will see everybody on the after show.
Okay. Well, let's why don't I go ahead and share with you guys what's happening here. You've got this news this morning, or yesterday actually, that BYD is cutting their prices up to 34% in 22 of their EVs and plug-in hybrids. And this is, look at this, their stock levels at dealerships last month reached 3.5 million cars, 57 inventory days. That's the highest since December 2023. So their inventory days is growing. And we talked about this earlier, but their Seagull hatchback, for example, sells at $7,780. That's after the 20% reduction. So can you imagine selling a car for under $10,000 and now $7,780? That's crazy. And then the hybrid saw the biggest price cut at 34% by 53,000 yuan to 102,000 yuan. To divide that by 7, so that one is a $30,000 car. Looks like, $15,000 car times 7, right? So these are like low price point cars that very likely have negative, like no margin, and now they have to even cut the price even further. Why are they doing that? Because there's a massive issue. There's an issue with clearing the inventory of older models. So let's take a look at that. I want to share with you this kind of data here. Where is it now? Here. This. Oh, I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have that data. But basically, there's this new phenomenon called, these cars called secondhand cars with zero mileage. And so that's the meeting that the government was having with all these automakers, including BYD. It's like, why are you guys creating these cars? You're trying to sell them. You pretend you sold them, but then they're sitting around as secondhand cars now because you've sold them, but they have zero mileage. Nobody actually bought them. So that is racking up. And now the government's worried about that, because what's going to happen to the price competitiveness is through the roof. That they're trying to say, why are all these Chinese car companies being in a basic price war with each other? And now you have these secondhand cars that have zero mileage that is able to be sold even cheaper than that. It causes the ones that are trying to sell their brand new cars to compete in the lower price points. It's a disaster, I think, and we'll find out if this is a really big deal or not a big deal. But this is, I think it is big news. So we're talking 20% to 30%. This is not just a small price cut. This is pretty serious. Will this affect Tesla? I don't know. But like we said, it doesn't seem like it's going to be something that is that competitive. But what will happen now when Tesla launches their more affordable vehicles? So yes, you've got these high price point cars, but what happens when they get their more affordable vehicles that even competes now with more BYD models? And people are saying, watch out, Tesla, watch out. You're the one that's in trouble. BYD's there. In fact, watch out, BYD. When you're struggling, trying to create margins, you're trying to cut your prices. And then now Tesla comes in with their competition to that. Things might break. Now, the other thing to consider is the biggest issue is the supply chain. There's a lot of supply chain that supplies BYD, of course. They are the ones that are struggling. BYD is not paying them for 270 days. And they're complaining. They're writing letters, and they're now spreading those letters to the news outlets saying, how can you not pay us for 270 days? How do they keep a profitable company as a supplier to these car companies? So what we've discovered now is that the government of China is actually, funding or, giving incentives to BYD, but they've been doing the same thing for the supply chain. So the question is, can the Chinese government support and prop up an entire industry? Not just one company, lots of companies, but all their entire supply chain. Now, if you then think about Tesla, Tesla's the only car company, and Grace Tao, the senior vice president of Tesla, came out and said, we pay our suppliers in China 90 days. So you've got a big car manufacturer, Tesla, paying and supporting these suppliers. And so guess what? There's no way that China is going to just say, screw you, Tesla. We don't need you here anymore, because they're the ones that's helping to prop up the supply chain partners that then prop up all of the Chinese automakers. So this guy here was out not only talking about the fact that there's a lot of car companies that are possibly going to go under in China. He also talked about the price war. That's a real big issue in the industry. And he also said, what happens when you've already lowered your price of a part from 2,000 yuan to 1,000 yuan? What happens to the quality of that part if you keep requiring to lower that price? because BYD sent a letter to all of their suppliers demanding them to cut their prices by 10%. So you have to ask yourself, why is BYD sending letters to their suppliers? Why are they not paying the money? These payables outstanding is through the roof. Why are they cutting prices? Why are they trying to raise more money? These all point to a company that's struggling, and yet there's others that are saying, no, they're the strongest company out there. Yes, they're strong. Yes, they have lots of cars and they're succeeding, but this may not last for as long as people think it is. Anyways, thank you guys very much. Stay on this channel, and then you will be directed to Brian's channel very shortly. Thanks, everybody. Bye all.